Alrighty, everybody. Welcome to the Snow Day non-event event. And as promised, we are going to make some headway here in the age of absolutism. We finished European absolutism, where we looked at the Stuarts of England and how they messed up. We looked at the Spanish, how they had an enormous lead with the overseas empire gold coming in. And then we looked at Peter the Great and Louis the 14th, the biggest absolutists in Europe in my mind. Now we're going to flip the coin and we're going to go to Asia, where roughly at exactly the same time there is a series of absolute, not only single monarchs, but dynasties that will exist in the Ottoman Empire, in Mughal India, in Ming Dynasty China, and last but not least over in Japan with Tokugawa Ieyasu. But today is going to be a quick one, so I can finish grading all of your essays. Tomorrow, which we most likely won't have school again, will be the Ottomans. It will be a bit longer, so get ready for that one. So enjoy the day off. And this is a really great character. I think you guys are really going to like my man Akbar the Great here. So not to be biased, but he's one of my favorite characters in world history because he has these wonky, crazy ideas. And so we're looking at India. And when we last left India, it was after the spread of the three great gunpowder empires, the Ottomans, the Safavids, and the Mughals over in India, which are going to come about, bring Islam in, descendants of the warlord Tamerlane, if you can remember him. And so here we have in Mughal India, they have the dynasty really takes off under a guy named Babur, B-A-B-U-R. And he is one of these descendants of Tamerlane, as we said. And the Mughals are significant in my mind because they were able to end a lot of the fragmentation and divisiveness that existed in northern India, up on the great Ganges River, the well-watered plain up there, the real beautiful area of northern India. And they begin to get the ball rolling, but they are known for their greatest monarch in the Mughal dynasty is a guy named Akbar the Great. I like to think of him as being able to unite many different people, and the analogy I use, maybe a little bizarre, is Admiral Akbar of Star Wars when they're planning the attack on the original Death Star, one of the 12 or 15 that got blown up. If you look around that circular table, there's different types of people and creatures and aliens that were part of the Rebel Alliance. And that to me kind of shows unity. And that is the hallmark of the great ruler of the Mughal dynasty, Akbar the Great. Now he is the grandson of Babur, right? So think of him as like a Peter the Greatish. You know, his ancestor gets it started and then he takes the empire to its greatest height. And much like Peter the Great and much like Louis the 14th, Akbar is going to reign for an extremely long time, from 1556 to 1605. So you get that 50-year run in there where you've got one guy calling the shots and running the show. And so Akbar probably creates, if not the strongest, one of the strongest absolute monarchical governments in the world at the time. He will be a contemporary with Charles V and Philip II of Spain. Right? So he is Akbar the Great. And as I said, he's as great as anybody. Charles V, Elizabeth I, you name it. And a lot of people think that Akbar the Great may have been more powerful than any other European ruler at the time. I mean, he was just a tremendously wealthy, powerful guy. But Akbar, all right, starts his reign as a conqueror, as most guys do. He goes out and he conquers and he expands the power of the Mughal Empire. And then once he's done conquering, he's like, okay, how to make this peaceful? How to stabilize this? So he is more renowned for how he runs his government post-conquest than he is as a warrior. Right? There are a lot bigger, better, badder warriors, but it's his political control after this is done that sets him apart. He makes incredibly great governmental reforms. He is also a great sponsor of Mughal Indian cultural heritage and patronage, like Louis XIV was in France, and like Philip II was in the Century of Gold. But what sets him apart, all right, yes, he is more powerful than his European contemporaries, possibly. He reigns like long time, like Louis and Peter. But what sets him apart from his contemporaries in England, France, and Spain is while they were fighting their Protestant, Catholic, we're all going to be Catholics, we're all going to be Protestant wars, it was Akbar's religious toleration that really wins him, a seat high up in the Jedi Tower, to continue with the Star Wars analogy. And he wanted to provide honest, good government. Government that worked for the vast diversity of his empire. Going way back in time in India, like Ashoka and his 4 pillars. Inside these pillars you will have honest, good government. Well, this is what I want to do. And he wants to do it through religious toleration and working with the diversity of his empire. And so what Akbar does is he creates his own central administration. I am in charge, right? He's absolute. But he's going to handpick and put people he trusts in provincial governments. Their job there is to carry out what Akbar wants done. And India is so big and so diverse, he's got to find a way to make this work for everybody. So he does what some of the more brilliant leaders throughout world history are able to do, and that is he orders a census or a land survey. He wants to know how many people live in what area, which areas consume more resources, which areas are more profitable and have higher crop yields, and which ones do not. And then Akbar balances the tax record. The greater the number of people, the more resources you consume, the more taxes you pay. If you have a higher crop yield in Area A as compared to Area B, Area A is going to pay a little more. But if they begin to suffer and they have a couple years of bad harvest and Area B picks up, he can slide and adjust the taxation so it's fair. Not just on Muslims, but also on native Hindus. Honest, good government. And so when he reorganizes the tax system, like many other great leaders before him, it's fair and it works and people begin to buy into this. And then the other thing he does, unlike Louis XIV, who revokes the Edict of Nantes or Nantes, however you say that in French, is he removes the special tax on non-believers. Remember, if you were not a Muslim, you had to pay a head tax. And Akbar's like, no, I just don't really think that that is actually fair. So he removes that tax. That is one of the things that he does. And his greatest contribution, in my mind, is his religious tolerance. He wants to unify his empire through religious toleration. What? Did I just say religious toleration? Yes, Patricia, I did. All right. So he wants to use that crazy, unique, Mali-esque idea of we're all in this together. So why should we be separate? Let's let our diversity strengthen us rather than divide. This is something crazy. It's not seen in any other absolute monarchical area, from England to France to Spain. It's just not. Even Mother Russia, where Peter is now controlling the church. And so to further unify his people, Akbar is actually going to marry a Hindu princess, a native Hindu princess. He appoints Hindus to high, powerful governmental jobs, all right? He doesn't restrict them. He doesn't kick them out. He actually appoints them to high governmental positions. And this reduces the static tension. You could almost feel it. It was almost palpable. You could almost see it hanging in the air. Oops. All right. All right. That would be the end of first period had we actually been in school today. So anyhow, this reduces the tension between Hindus and Muslims, which was getting pretty intense. And Akbar, the greatest thing that he does is that he will go out and he will get representatives from many different other religions. He will get everybody from Muslim to Hindu to Buddhists to Christians to Hebrews, anybody traveling back and forth on the Silk or Spice Road or Indian Ocean trade, even get some Confucian scholars in here. Let's sit down, and he gets them in this famous painting where they're in a big room, they sit down on their pillows, they're being served tea, and Akbar says, let's find out more of what we have in common rather than what divides us. Let's study where our commonalities lie. You Hindus with this Maharivan, idea of thou shalt not kill and thou shalt not steal. Well, that's kind of like the Ten Commandments these Hebrews have. And this Buddhist eightfold path, right speech, right thought, right action. Wasn't that what you Christians in the Sermon on the Mount think? So in order to be a good person, it kind of seems like it's all the right thing. Let's look more at what unifies us instead of what separates us. That is what we need to focus on. And under Akbar's reign, India flourishes. You've got this great Jedi of power, of charisma, who gets it, who understands what tolerance and what diversity is. Buzzwords that are thrown around every day in the modern world. And yet this guy gets it. And he's around for 50 years to make sure that it happens. He is a guy that is truly unique with extraordinary leadership capabilities. If people could study what Akbar did and copy it, it would be a truly better place. Unfortunately, as we've heard time and time again, when Akbar dies in 1605, he was one of those great movers and shakers and doers. He was so busy doing things, people got accustomed to just letting Akbar do it. So there's no training of a successor. There's no one to follow up his great vision. And this has a negative effect on the Mughal economy. His reign, as you can see, is just incredible. His successors just didn't have it. They will spend a lot of money on building projects, things like Versailles, things like the Winter Palace that Louis and Peter did, but they're going to go even a little crazier. And for a time, we'll see one of his descendants, Shah Jahan, was the richest man in the world, had like basketball-sized rubies in some of his palaces, and they wind up blowing it all. They erode the incredible solid financial base that India had. It was a key position not only on the overland Silk and Spice Road, but the Indian Ocean trade. A lot of money is flowing through there, but you got to manage it wisely. And they even do something stupid enough to remove Akbar's tax reforms, to reinstitute that head tax. And in turn, what that does is it makes a lot of people angry. Where Akbar ruled through unity, these guys are dropping the hammer, finding any way they can to squeeze money out of people when they blow the vast amount of wealth that they had from trading. First guy up is this guy, Emperor Jahangir. All right, Jahangir, if you can't see that. Emperor Jahangir does something that is super costly. Coming out of Europe is England. who controls the empire in which the sun never sets. And England was interested in setting up trading depots around the world to get goods cheap at the source and then bring them back to England and make money off them. The same thing that will be going on in the North American colonies very soon. Well, the British convinced Yangier to allow them to set up, oh my God, it's killing me, thank you. It's now second period, everyone. They allow Yangier to set up trading posts on the coast of India. They want to get in on the spice trade, pepper, curry, cinnamon, you name it. They want ginger. They want to get in on this whole thing, tea. And this is unfortunate for India because he did not know that once the British get their hooks or claws into you, they are never going to let go. And slowly but ever so surely, the British will manipulate and coerce and get people to fight. And when the other two groups, say Muslim and Hindu, are fighting, the British encroach a little more, and they encroach a little more, and they encroach a little more, and they gobble up more territory to get more wealth. Another emperor, the aforementioned Shah Jahan, is an extremely wealthy guy, reportedly the richest man in the world by far and away. Problem is, he wants to be like his ancestor and be a great conqueror. Unfortunately, he's terrible. He couldn't buy a victory if he had to. He was just absolutely horrible. He was like the Roman emperors of old that thought, to replenish my economy and get more money, I should conquer more territory. Well, that would be good if he actually was successful, which he was not. And his policies, instead of having a positive benefit for India, actually causes them to further regress. They have an adverse effect on India. And as I've been telling you all along, absolutism, you need a solid financial base. You need to be free of nobles or a parliament, and you got to have a big military. Problem with big militaries is they are extremely expensive. They cost a ton of money. And when he builds this big army and he goes and loses, he blows a lot of the money that he had. His military adventures cost a ton. While he's doing that, he builds a very beautiful, iconic building in India, the Taj Mahal, as a mausoleum burial memorial for his wife. What most people don't know is across the river he was building an identical one out of black marble for himself. However, before it was finished, he went broke, and Mughal India begins to collapse. When things start going terribly, someone has to be blamed for it. So Shah Jahan also then begins to get vindictive, and he ends his ancestors' great policy of religious tolerance. So Akbar stands out as this great leader of vision, of conquest, of good, solid, honest government. I will make the decisions. I may have a small staff, and I'm going to put people in the provinces that I know I can trust, and I tell them what to do. I'm hands-on and I'm eyes-on. I have got Will over here taking care of business. I've got Claude back there taking care of business. I've got Jasper here, and I even have Kevin here and I can watch those four. I know exactly what they're doing, and I can see the wealth come in from my evenly distributed taxation system. People are working together. Hindu and Muslim are working. We're ruling through religious diversity. But the ancestors of Akbar are going to undo all of the great work that he had done. The great diversity that will lead to internal disorder. It will lead to chaos. And it will bring down what is at one time one of the most powerful, dominant, and more importantly, tolerant absolute monarchs in world history. So that's one for today. Get a couple slices of pizza for lunch. Sit down with mom and dad on the couch, and you can go back and forth between the Weather Channel and see when it's actually going to snow about 5 o'clock tonight, and or watch this great video lesson. All right, guys, hopefully I'll see you tomorrow, but most likely Monday when it's 65 degrees. Look for the Ottoman Empire tomorrow. It'll be a bit longer than this. See you guys soon.